first thing we've got to watch or look out for in this question is that it says at the top, the quality of written communication will be assessed in this question. So we've got to be careful of how we describe our answer and to put in as much detail and use as much mathematical language properly as we can. So Aaron wants to find out how often people go to the cinema. He designs the following questionnaire to use to gather data for his survey. How often do you go to the cinema? That's a good question. Tick one box below, clear instruction. And then we've got not very often, sometimes, a lot. Now the first thing that we see in our options is we're asking how often, which means you would think you would want somebody to describe a number, how many times they go to the cinema, and then our options don't use numbers at all. They're a bit vague, okay? So that's the first thing that we're going to write down that we think's wrong with this, okay? The options are vague. A person who visits the cinema once a month might tick any of the boxes. So it's not really telling us, if we tick any of the boxes, it doesn't tell us how many times the person goes to the cinema. Now, if we take that, okay, if we look at the other point about this, it says normally a set of options are balanced. If you have a lot on one side, then on the other side you would have not a lot. If you have not very often on one side, you would have very often on the other side. There would be a balance. Okay, and in this case there's not a balance. There's not a positive one to meet each negative one. Okay, so the options should be better balanced. E.g., add in very often and not a lot options. Okay, so we're saying that. Now, in the second part then, we're asked to design a better questionnaire for him to use to find out how often people go to the cinema. You should include some response boxes. Okay, so it's asking us to make a better questionnaire. Now, when we were reading it, we thought the question was good, so we're just going to use it again. How often do you go to the cinema? But another problem with that question is, how often do you go to the cinema? Every week? In a week? In a month? In a year? In a decade? It doesn't give us a time scale. So to improve it, we're going to say, how often do you go to the cinema each month? So there's our first improvement. We're going to say to people, okay, how often do you go each month? And then we're going to give them a few options. Okay, so never, once or twice, 3 or 4 times, or 5+. And there we've given everybody an option. Okay, we compare that with the one above. If you never went, you wouldn't have an option here. Okay, Whereas here, if I choose any of these options, the person looking at these will be able to tell exactly how often we go each month. Okay, the last part of the question. Aaron intends to give the questionnaire to all the men, so it's only men, leaving the cinema. And it's only ones that are leaving the cinema, not anybody going into the cinema. Okay, so first reason then that this is not going to be this is going to be biased is only surveying men. So that's not going to take into account all the women who go to the cinema. And the second is it's only surveying people who are leaving the cinema. So it'll only be the ones who have already seen a film. So there's no option there for somebody not to have gone to the cinema. It's only surveying people who go to a cinema. So it's leaving out all the people who don't go to a cinema. And if you think about it, if you're doing one of these surveys, they maybe are people you want the opinions of, because they're the people you want to encourage to go to the cinema. So that would be another reason it would be biased.